All right, I'd like to open tonight's meeting. Welcome everyone to this Pittsburgh City Commission meeting Tuesday, September 13th, 2022. I'd like to ask everyone to please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'd like to welcome Father Jerome Spexart with Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic Church for the prayer tonight. Good evening, Father.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Let's begin in the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. From the letter of St. Paul's to the Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 12. As a body is one, though it has many parts, and all the parts of the body, though many, are one body, so also Christ. Heavenly Father, Creator of us all, help us to see into the needs of all the people as brothers and sisters of the same community. Lord, we thank you for these leaders who are gathered here this evening. Inspire them with your love, with your wisdom, with your hope, with your courage, so as to bring about a greater unity, peace, and solidarity, resembling more and more the kingdom of heaven you're calling us to. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right, I'd like to open public input. If there's anyone who'd like to come up, state your name, address, and limit your comments to 5 minutes. All right, seeing none, closing public input. Next order is a proclamation, and I'd like to ask Mary Gilpin and her people to come forward. Thank you for being here. From the Office of the Mayor, September 17th, 2022 marks the 235th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. It is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Cheryl Brooks, Mayor of the City of Pittsburgh, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd of 2022 as Constitution Week in Pittsburgh, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained. I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mary, come back here a minute.
Oh.
Did you get it, John?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda? Okay, item D is the only one that I would like to remove. Moving on, item A, approval of the August 23rd, 2022 City Commission meeting minutes. Item B, approval of final payment in the amount of $303,000 to Utility Service Company Incorporated of Perry, Georgia for the North Water Tower blasting and painting project. Item C, approval of the appointment of myself, Cheryl Brooks, Stu Height, Chuck Munsell, and Ron Sigley as voting delegates, and Darren Hall, Jay Byers, and Tammy Nagel as alternate voting delegates to represent the City of Pittsburgh at the League of Kansas Municipalities annual meeting scheduled for October 8th through October the 10th of 2022 in Overland Park, Kansas. Do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve consent agenda items A, B, and C.
Okay, moved by Chuck,
Second.
seconded by Ron. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, motion passes. All right, item D, approval of the appropriation ordinance for the period ending September 13th, 2022, subject to the release of HUD expenditures when funds are received. I will be recusing myself due to conflict.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Don, seconded by Stu. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 It's not a roll call vote, right? Okay, all right. Now, public hearing, proposed 2023 revenue neutral rate. The city of Pittsburgh advertised for a public hearing to be held on September 13th, 2022, at the city commission meeting commencing at 5:30 PM in the city commission room located in the Law Enforcement Center at 201 North Pine for the purpose of hearing and answering questions related to exceeding the revenue neutral rate for the 2023 budget. Following the public hearing, approve or disapprove exceeding the revenue neutral rate for the 2023 budget, and if approved, adopt resolution number 1253 and authorize the mayor to sign the resolution on behalf of the city. So I'm going to open the public hearing. And if there's anyone who'd like to ask any questions or come up. All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. And so the next part,
I'd like to make a motion to reduce the city's current mill levy of 51.636 mills to 49.96 mills. That's the midpoint between our current mill levy and the revenue neutral rate of, what was that, 48.282. And by doing so in this motion to reduce, that 49.961 exceeds the revenue neutral rate. So that's my motion, to lower current mill levy, but to exceed the revenue neutral rate.
okay, so a motion by Chuck. I'll second that. So can we open it for discussion?
Yep.
Okay, so open for discussion.
All right, so the reason I made this motion, like I said, the city's current mill levy is 51.636. Our assessed valuation went up to $148,125,457. And if we keep our current mill rate at 51.636, the city will gain additional property tax revenue in the amount of, I have $496,989. I don't know if that's correct.
Good evening, Mayor and
Good evening.
Commissioners. It's a 457,000, I think is the
457.
exact amount. Let me get-
450,
457,269.
all right, I stand corrected, 457. What'd you say the rest of it was?
267, or 269, sorry.
259?
457,269.
269. All right. So if we leave it at 51, the city will gain an additional $457,269. And I understand why we would do that, because like Darren said, previous meetings, it's costing the city a lot more for everything that we provide to the citizens. I understand that. But on the same token, everyone's paying more. I feel like this is something that if we went halfway, it would give our businesses as well as our citizens a break from this tax increase. You know, like I said, our businesses are having to pay, just like the city is, for more for everything that they provide. And when they do that, their product, because it's more expensive, they have to pass that cost on to the citizens, which in turn, the citizens has to pay more. So I feel that, you know, if we could do this, I understand we need to, you know, because of inflation, we need to raise that mill levy past the revenue neutral rate. But I think if we try to be a little fair to our citizens, I understand we want to grow the city. I want to see our businesses grow. I want to see our citizens grow. And when you put that extra burden of extra property tax on, it's harder for the citizens and the businesses to survive, because they've had to pay more for everything, and they have to pay that cost, pass that cost on to consumers. You know, In the budget, we've raised our water and sewer rates, and I'm 100% in favor of that because we need to build a new wastewater treatment plant. So if you raise property tax, raise water and sewer rates, our sales tax is up higher than it's ever been. And my way of thinking is, one of the things that's causing the sales tax increase, well, two things. A lot of people are coming to Pittsburgh because we are the hub of businesses and shops, so they come here to buy. But another thing that increases that sales tax is the cost that goes along with, the businesses have to pay more, so that cost that they have to pay more for their product gets passed on to consumers, and the consumers have to pay more. So, I think this is fair. I think the city can still gain additional, and could you help me with that? If it's 49.961, I had the city will gain an additional $248,730. Is that, could you,
Well, 1 mil generates $143,000.
143,000?
And I appreciate your thoughts, Commissioner, on those. I do want to state that property taxes are our only thing that is, are stable revenue. Sales tax can fluctuate.
Sure.
Right now, we are seeing a lot of growth in that area, but that could change next month. So our one revenue stream that is stable for us when we're creating that is our property taxes.
I understand
And,
that.
and I hear what you're saying, and I understand that, but the valuations have always remained pretty flat. This is our, I think 2 years and last 10 years that maybe we've seen some increases. And that's one way for us to capture that.
Right, I understand that, and I hope you understand. I understand what you're saying,
Yep.
but the cost is to our businesses, their rates are going up for product, and they have to pass it on to the consumer, as well as interest rates are going up. So, even though our assessed valuation goes up on our property, that's a good thing, but you go sell that property and go buy something else, you're gonna pay more because of the interest rates.
Larissa, could you remind us again, you said 1 mil generates how much for the city?
143,000.
What does that what does that translate to per household, if you will, on like $100,000 piece of property?
So for a $100,000 piece of property, you're paying $11.50
So,
for the year.
so that
those
translates to essentially $11 per 100,000 if we lower the mill, right?
Correct.
But I'm also kind of confused. I just want to make sure I'm following. On the revenue neutral rate, could you explain that to us real quick?
So the revenue neutral rate is a fairly new thing, and so it's, the county gives us a revenue neutral rate. They gave it 48 point, can't remember what exactly it is right now, but it was 48 mils, and that tells us.
0.293.
Thank you. And so that tells us that for us to sustain our budget from last year, that was the amount of money that we levied
Okay.
to operate.
And so on this particular part of our agenda, aren't we just voting on whether or not to go outside of, if we're deciding to stick with the revenue neutral rate, or if we're wanting to, Henry, help me out on the verbiage of that.
The resolution that's on the agenda simply says that here's what the revenue neutral rate was calculated for the city by the county. And if we're going to exceed that, regardless of how much we're going to exceed that, we have to approve this resolution. When you get to the budget on the next agenda item, then
okay.
then you're
So-
talking about, where you're going to set the mill rate.
This being new-
So in order to exceed the revenue neutral rate, we have to approve this resolution before we get to.
So,
the
and
budget.
again, just, I'm clear on, but I want to make sure everybody else is clear. The revenue neutral rate, we're basically saying because of appraised values. Larissa, if you can, I don't want to paraphrase that, so you might do a better job of explaining it.
Yes, so after we received the valuations, we contacted the county to see what the majority, there's so many different factors that can play into valuations.
Sure.
But the biggest thing this year was the appraisers across the state did reevaluate property because homes are selling at higher rates than normal. And so they did make those adjustments across the board in our county.
So the really good news is the conversation we're having right now is because our valuations are up and will exceed the mill rate. So the revenue neutral rate, if I understand it right, Henry, we'll need to adopt this if we want to exceed it.
That's correct.
So I would move,
So,
And-
Wait a minute, we've got
Yeah,
it.
we've got a motion on the
Well, I
table.
included that, Stu, in my motion,
But do
to
you-
exceed the revenue.
Would you be
neutral.
open to a friendly amendment to your motion and not include your mill
Say
rate?
that again?
Would you be open to just limiting your motion to exceeding the revenue rate as opposed to putting in what the mill you
Well,
want?
yeah, if follow that up, that I can make a
Yeah.
motion.
That's
Well,
the
that
next
would be
thing.
with the budget.
Right, right.
Yes.
So we're gonna exceed the revenue neutral rate regardless, and
Right,
that's
and
what,
we've got to approve
Yes.
this
Right.
We have to approve
resolution.
it to
in order to
Assuming
do
that the
so.
5 of you
Yes.
want to exceed the.
Yeah,
yes,
That's the resolution you should be considering right now.
Well, I'll change my motion right now
Okay.
to exceed the revenue neutral rate.
okay.
and I'll second it. Does anybody, Ron?
We have to do a roll call vote
Okay,
on
roll
that.
call. Okay, I just didn't know if anybody had anything else to say.
My
No.
remarks will be under the budget.
Okay, all right, so roll call vote then?
Brooks,
Yes?
Height,
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes.
Munsell,
Yes,
Sigley.
Yes.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank
Now
you.
can we ask some questions?
Well, I gotta make that motion back.
Well, we have to open,
Yeah,
close that hearing, but we
Okay.
need to
Your
open
budget
the
hearing
budget.
first.
all right,
All right.
so. All right, do I need to close it after we voted? Okay, I already did, okay,
You already did,
all
yeah.
All
right.
right, I'll make a motion.
Well,
like-
Or wait a minute, let me read it.
Oh, all right.
And we have a hearing first.
Yeah, okay, so B, proposed 2023 budget. The city of Pittsburgh advertised for a public hearing to be held September 13th, 2022 at the city commission meeting commencing at 5:30 PM in the city commission room located in the law enforcement center at 201 North Pine for the purpose of a hearing and answering questions relating to the proposed 2023 budget. Following the public hearing, approve or disapprove of the 2023 budget, and if approved, authorize the mayor and city commissioners to sign the state budget certificate form on behalf of the city. All right.
So you open it to public
Yes, I'm
hearing.
opening the public, oh, excuse me. Public hearing is open. Are there any questions by anyone in the audience? All right, seeing none, closing the public hearing. And now, Chuck, go ahead and,
All right, I'll make a motion to reduce current mill levy of 51,636 to 49.961. This is the middle of, between the revenue neutral rate, which was 48,282, and you heard some of my reasons why I want to do this, but I want to read something. And this, we all get this League of Municipalities magazine. I don't know if it's monthly, every couple months, whenever it is. But in this league magazine, I took this part out. It's on property taxes. And this is legislative wrap-up and why this happened, what was changed. Property taxes, we recognize in areas of the state, there is a large reliance on property taxes to fund local and state government. All property taxing authorities, including cities, counties, the state, school district, special districts, and community colleges, should be equally transparent and have to abide by the same limitation, restrictions, or requirements. Any additional transparency measures should not be burdensome or costly. We encourage the state and local governments to work on making government more effective and recognize the need to work together on innovative approaches to reduce reliance on property tax. That's what happened at the state. That's why this resolution was passed. And I know we live in an area that we rely on property tax, but we rely on our sales tax too. I know a lot of areas in Kansas don't have the same benefits we do with the sales tax. But, you know, you all heard why I want to lower this, reduce it, because I know we need to grow the city, and we still can grow the city by this 49,961 mill levy that I made a motion to for.
How many mills is that, Chuck? I don't make him do the math. You're going to lower it, what?
It's
One-
40, what do you say?
Lower
What's it?
the 50.
Total mills, what do you want to?
2 point something.
so you're halfway,
Yeah, it's halfway,
It's-
it's 1 point,
what's half of 3.353?
yeah, 1.676.
Or Larissa, you think you could help with the math here? Half of 3.353.
1.6.
You got a
I'm gonna let
calculator?
Larissa do the calculation.
1.75.
Well, one thing I'm worried about by doing that is we just approved a large employee wage, a salary study, phase one, and we have phase two coming up that we're committed to, if we all agree on that, in October to compensate the city employees that I think we all agree is necessary. And that was over and above what was budgeted last year. I'm just trying to figure out, I like the idea, Chuck, I like the idea of lowering mills, but I worry about what that's gonna do to our overall budget and how we're able to proceed with that in 2023 and beyond, if we lower it now, to be able to still make that second phase of the pay study just by itself. And I think we're gonna hear later on about a tanker that is needed. I mean, there's just, there's.
Will this potentially, decreasing it, will it potentially cost jobs?
Well, I was gonna tell you that but this budget includes that 457,000 increase.
Right.
So there will have to be a cut somewhere, based on your guys' recommendation.
And the majority of the cut will come from personnel, correct?
Well, we have 4% raises in there,
Yeah.
and that's usually the standard that we'll start cutting.
Why would you cut, services? Or like payroll? I mean, why would you go there?
Because we
Because
have-
we're not,
Labor's-
if you're talking 400 and, you said 457?
457, yes.
So if you're doing the math, half of the 457, you're
It's
220.
239,
How much?
239.
239, okay. And we have a reserve, but we made it through the pandemic on limited resources. And everybody is feeling the effects of everything coming up from there. So is it gonna make or break us for $250,000 whenever
It's gotta come from somewhere,
It's gotta
right?
come,
But
yeah.
it does, but still,
Well, it's-
everybody's feeling the effects of all of this.
When the economy is like this, it's not a good management practice to take that dip into reserves.
Well, and
So it's gonna have to come from
I
somewhere.
mean, we've been looking at this for 4 months, and I realize that, decisions, you don't really know the impact until it's in front of you. And, our job is always balancing our tax policy on our citizens' resources versus the services that are taxpayer built. I am concerned that we have taken our leadership to this point with an approved, basically consensus on the budget, and now all of a sudden, we're not. The other thing that concerns me is what's that gonna do to us next year when the 5 of us are sitting here? We don't know if our sales tax will continue to grow. If inflation continues, people may pull back. And we don't know if we're still gonna have a red hot real estate market, probably not.
And if we go down to the 49, that is our new baseline for next year.
Right, so
I wanna
next
But
make
it
sure
can
you
come
are-
up next year if
No.
No.
you couldn't
So-
rate,
No.
it
So
could,
the
You
gap will be
We'd have to
bigger.
raise the mill levy at that point.
Yes, so we may be faced, maybe not with as much valuation increase. We'll have FedEx come on. We don't know what the market's gonna do. I just think it's gonna, why would you cut revenue when we have told leadership to increase expenses? We asked for the wage study for recruitment and retention. We asked for additional staff in codes and enforcement. So we've asked for those things. We've asked for them to build a budget on that, and now all of a sudden we're saying, ooh, never mind.
No, I asked, why I did this, because it costs us more. Just like I said earlier, it costs our businesses more, it costs our citizens more. So I
But
think,
it costs the city more, too.
Right.
exactly.
Larissa, what's the inflation? I think one of us asked you at one of the previous meetings. Our inflation to the city is costing us what in the budget?
Around 2.8
$2.8
million
million that we didn't have budgeted
compared to last year.
compared to
And
last year.
Yeah.
I frankly have not heard from a lot of people on this, but I have heard from some businesses, and their survival, they feel, is better with growth in our community than reducing their taxes. That's where they're gonna survive, is for us to continue to be that hub you're talking about, not only with our retail and our restaurants, but construction. So I guess I'm saying I'm not in favor of
So-
adjusting the budget from what we have talked about since April.
So when it comes down to it, either we're gonna do without some things, some services or some salaries, or we're not. Okay.
But we've
Yeah,
already
we're
been doing
seeing-
without on, I mean,
I mean, you have an item on your agenda tonight that's a prime example of inflation. Last year, we came to you for the airport fueler truck, and it was $116,000. We were unable to get that vehicle, so we had to go back out, and now it's a $20,000 increase.
I think the other thing that is in it, it won't necessarily offset any tax increase from any of the taxing entities, but, you know, this year, the education exemption went from 20,000 on a home to 40,000. So right out of the gate, everyone is, you know, gonna see a $46 savings. So, and that doesn't
Yes.
necessarily offset what any of us are talking about, but it is something.
we've raised it all, I mean, it's raised every year, though. There's been some raise, and at some point, you have to, I mean, I would think you'd have to think about what's, I mean, definitely what's
We're talking
When
good.
you
about the
say
mill rate?
So
raise,
we have not raised the mill. The mill rate is 51.3.
Well, I mean, I'm
4
looking at the actual rate.
Well, I know, but
And it can
but
fluctuate.
I want to be real clear.
because, you know, June 15th is when the county clerk gives us evaluations, and that's just a moment in time. So when they go to set the levy in October, those valuations can change. And that's why you see a little fluctuation from year to year, but we've never
But it's
raised it. I
after,
mean,
it's after the decimal point. It's like 51 point something.
Right. I think it's been several years before.
And the
since
other
we've
challenge
raised it.
is if you dip into reserves to pay for raises, then that creates a structural imbalance. You can't,
Yeah.
because the raises come every year after that, and then you'd have to dip theoretically into reserves every year. That's why it's real important that the reserves are there to protect us in a bad time, which may be right around the corner, but the budget is set up with revenues that we bring in equaling expenses we have going out. And the property tax is that main vein of, sales tax can go anywhere. If the economy goes bad, it could definitely go down. But the property tax, we know what it is, and that guarantees that the more people we put jobs to that property tax, we're not gonna be looking at layoffs or something. That's why the sales tax is earmarked towards pavement and equipment, non-personnel stuff to the extent that we can, because the property tax is that solid revenue stream that once we collect it and put it on the books, we know within a decimal point what it's probably going to generate, and that's good protection for the every other year that we're in. Remember, it's been probably 30 years since the city did a pay study and put the kind of money that the commission is committed to our employees. Taking that out of it, this is just every other year, they get a 4% raise in January. So this is that's what's on the table if we mess with that revenue side of it at this point. It's not, we all want to cut the taxes, but it would just seem like such a slight increase for the benefit to the employees who are still, the wage study, to recap, said we were 10% below market. You gave 5% to a big portion of them in April, but meaning that we'd come back in September, October, look at the rest of them. We have a plan for that, but that's still more money. But I think the employees deserve to catch up so they can still support the local market and shop and do things and not look at maybe losing their job or something else, because it's very convoluted, but
It's a balancing
you
act.
can't, I just highly recommend we don't use reserves to balance the budget.
And-
in a
Well, we've
strong
been
economy.
talking for 5 years about reserves for our wastewater treatment plant,
Yeah.
so.
And to Dawn's point, we did talk about this in April, May, whenever the work session was. And, I mean, we did talk about capturing the growth of our community, which was the $457,269, because of the rate, the appraisal increases. We talked about that, and we didn't talk about not capturing it back then, so they put it into the budget, which is before us tonight, which we're, quite frankly, has to be adopted tonight. So it really is kind of I understand why we would like to consider reducing it, but we probably should have discussed that maybe back in April or May, if that was our long-term goal and maybe not give the increases that we all wanted to do, ask for the extra personnel that we all agreed to do. So I think, I feel like Don pointed out, I think tonight's, it's a little last minute to try to spring this on the people that we entrust to bring this, I had started to say document, but this binder to us, that's gonna help us guide and operate our city for the next year. So, as much as I'd like to, see the mill rate go down too, I don't think it's fiscally responsible of us to do that as a governing body at this point.
Well, for one thing, it's not springing it. It's, you have a budget this great, and from my perspective, you sound like that 200 and some thousand is gonna make or break this place. It's not. I just don't understand that part of it. Or
Well, we
maybe
have-
help me understand
we have
how
to
it's gonna
balance the
make or
budget.
break.
So it has to come from somewhere.
So what you're saying
if
is
we
that,
take
that
out-
if we go with the present, or the rate of whatever it is, 1 point, whatever it is, the money's gotta come, the budget's already there.
If
So
we-
we gotta
yes.
go down and dip someplace else to bring that forward,
Right.
to make it
That
good,
money
make it
is
whole,
already
right?
in this budget document, so if we take out the revenue, we have to take it out from expenditures somewhere.
So I understand what you're saying, and my thoughts are, so all of our businesses, if their taxes increase, then they gotta go through their budget and see where they can reduce for the extra tax that they're gonna have. So it's a,
What, again, remind us, if you would, what are we looking at for an individual family approximately, 43, I think, I looked at my numbers and stuff, it was like $33 or something on an average of, except, if you got a $600,000 home, that's a different story.
Or multiple properties.
Right.
Yes, yeah. But on a
Yeah.
$100,000 home, we're talking it'd probably be around $35 to $40.
$35, now,
A year or monthly.
A year.
a year.
well, $35 a year to some people is,
Is a lot.
a lot of money.
But so, yeah. I just think that it positions us next year at a disadvantage. So,
What happens when the inflation goes worse than it is now? How does that affect this next year?
We adapt throughout, that's what we've been doing the last couple of years we saw 7% inflation last year and we made adjustments within our budget that we had already adopted.
And next year it could be even more
And
than it
can
is
be
right
worse.
now.
Yeah.
so to my point, why would we increase the gap this year when, in all reality, we're gonna be facing something next year?
Right.
I hear what you're saying, and my point is, inflation is going to affect us as well as the businesses, so.
So is there, I've lost track, is there a motion on the table? There it
Yeah,
is.
there's a motion and a second.
Okay.
Is there anything else you might want to add?
You might read that motion off again, Cheryl.
Or Tammy?
Or, yeah, Tammy, would you do it for me, please?
It was to reduce the mill levy from 51.636 to 49.961.
Can I say one thing? At some point, we have to address what we're gonna cut if we're gonna do that. Do we do that in the budget adoption? Or is it part of this motion, this is a motion to adopt the budget with that mill rate, I believe. If you're
So
gonna
we'd
do
be out
that,
of balance.
you're gonna have a second half of that motion to say where that $239,000 is gonna come from.
I guess we need to see if there's a majority vote for this, and then, to your point.
I just didn't want you to consider a motion that wasn't.
Right,
Okay, I call the question.
yep.
Okay.
Okay, tell me.
She got that call from.
Ask for-
Oh, okay. All right, so does it have to be a roll call vote, or is it all those in favor? Tammy?
So it doesn't have to be a.
This one.
No? Okay, so all those in favor?
Of reducing the mill levy, that's what we're talking about. All right?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye?
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay?
Nay.
Okay, motion denied then, it's 3-2. And so
So I
it
would-
stands at what, at the current one then?
I would make a motion to adopt the proposed 2023 budget as presented to us.
Second. Oh, go
All
ahead.
right?
Triple second.
Moved and triple, or double seconded. All right, by Stu and Doc. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Aye.
All right, it passes.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate your
you.
time.
All right. Special presentation, Regional Economy Update. Dr. Michael Davidson, Director of the Pittsburgh State University Business and Economic Research Center, will provide an update on the regional economy. Mike?
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Obviously, I'm not Dr. Davidson, but I do have the pleasure of introducing him here tonight. Just wanted to kind of remind all the folks that may be watching tonight, since 2015, I have come before you once a year and asked for city support to partner with the Kels College of Business at Pittsburgh State University to produce the Pittsburgh Micropolitan Economic Report. And what that is, Madam Mayor, is it's a research document and a quarterly publication that, under the leadership of Dr. Davidson at the Kels College, they compile business statistics and information that's important to business, because obviously that's how business makes their decision, is based on data. So Dr. Davidson is an incredible economic researcher, has a long career in this, spent several years at the Tulsa Chamber in their economic research department. He's also been very helpful with us when we're entertaining economic development prospects, because they can often ask for the kind of information that's not easy to find. He's always willing to help. But it's a document that is produced quarterly that really is an indicator of how our economic health here is as a community. So Dr. Davidson does the research, they produce the publication. Thanks to the city's support, every single business owner in Pittsburgh receives a copy of this quarterly report. So there's a quarterly report that was recently issued, and we thought, especially for those individuals that maybe don't own a business and don't get to see that data, it would be helpful for Dr. Davidson to do a presentation tonight at a city commission meeting for those that may be watching, because it's great information, and I appreciate all that he does for us. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Davidson.
Thank you, Blake. Mayor, City Commissioners, thank you for inviting me here today to speak about the economic performance of the local economy. Now, the data is mixed. If we start out talking about jobs and productivity, then we can see in 2019 we were doing really well, and then of course in 2020 we had the COVID recession and we lost a lot of jobs. But the local economy is resilient, and we had healthy 1.7% growth in jobs in 2021. So the economy is coming back. Now, if you look at the character of the economy that we have, you can see that it is substantially a small business economy. Now, you have about 94.7% of all firms that have less than 50 employees, and they account for about 42.7% of all employment. Now, this is precisely the business segment that was the worst hit during COVID. But like I said, we are coming back. We don't have much information on 2022. However, we have from BLS, the latest here is Q1 22, and amazingly, we had 2.6% growth in jobs. We haven't seen that for a long time. Now, I remember when I came here first in 2013, and I was reporting on things, everything was looking down. But since 2015, we had some kind of turnaround. Things seems to be doing much better. Now, one thing that hadn't come back since COVID is the labor force. Just like nationwide, the labor force is not coming back as we would think, and we still have a lot of jobs open and unfilled. Now, if you look at the blue-collar labor force, at the workforce we have, then you can see that it is substantially blue-collar, relatively, and it lends itself well to manufacturing. Now, if you look at the contribution of the industries, local industries, to the economy, then you can see that besides government, which of course, is not producing, it's spending the taxes mostly, then manufacturing of the private firms is contributing more than any other local industry, with almost 130 million in payroll in 2021. It is the second biggest employer, private employer. The lot includes unrealized income. It includes depreciation on the public infrastructure as production of service. Of course, that is not going to increase anyone's pocketbook. And the same with real estate. It includes imputed rent of owner-occupied housing, so it's not a realized income. So manufacturing by far is the most important industry in terms of contributing to the local economy. Now, interestingly, if you look at the sub-industries, then printing and dog and cat food are the most important, followed by primary battery. Now let's look at population and housing. Now, up to 2019, the census did not report much growth in Pittsburgh. So when it did the count in 2020 and came out with the count that showed that we had 2.4% increase in the population, a lot of people almost fell over the chair. No one expected that. I shouldn't say no one. Some did, like Unicast, they had projected about 2% increase. So they're pretty close, and they project in 21 1.7%. We don't have anything for Pittsburgh for 22 at this point in time. Now, city leaders and economic developers like Chamber know that it's not enough to recruit people to the area. We have to be ready to receive them and have the infrastructure. Now, the city has been the catalyst for numerous housing developments that are either in the pipeline or recently finished, and we are benefiting from that now, since we are having all this population growth as of recently. Now let's dig a little further into the local gross domestic product. Now first of all, I want to define the local gross domestic product or gross domestic product. It's mostly just four things: wages and proprietor's income. That accounts for nationwide 70%. We don't know exactly how much it accounts for locally, but most of the gross domestic product is just wages and proprietor's income. Then you have taxes and profits on the top of that. Everything else is cost for the business. And this is amazing. It shows that the economy is on a good foundation. In the 2015-21 period, the gross domestic product has increased 29.7%, which is extremely healthy growth. And if you compare that to the state and the nation, you can see that it looks really good. We are doing really good. And keep in mind, 70% of this is wages and proprietor's income. Now, all this improvement in economic performance locally has to seep into household finances. And as you can see, then in the 2015-2021 period, the number of homes in Pittsburgh that was pushed up to the middle income bracket increased 12.6%, and 9.5% in the micropolitan area. And that, of course, compares well to the 0.2% statewide and 0.3% nationwide. Now, all this improvement in household financing, of course, has to affect credit scores. And according to Equifax, then during quarter 222, 75.7% of adults in the Pittsburgh micropolitan area, we don't have anything just for Pittsburgh, had a prime FICO credit score. Now that is the highest level ever in the recorded history of this indicator locally. Now, here is the predicament. Despite all this economic improvement, and of course poverty rates have been coming down, but they are still relatively high. So why is that? There are two plausible reasons. First is that Pittsburgh is a magnet for people in the region that are poor and need to get help and want to move to Pittsburgh and go on welfare or whatever. That is one reason that probably pays or explains some. Now the second thing has to do with commuters. Now remember, the gross domestic product is calculated at the firm level, at the location in Pittsburgh. And we are talking about Pittsburgh now. Now, 70% of the value created goes into wages and proprietor's income, 70%. What happens to the check when it's cut at the firm in Pittsburgh and given to the person, employee, if the person lives in Pittsburgh and goes out and spends it in Pittsburgh, buys a house, pays property taxes, or say rents, but spends most of the check in Pittsburgh, then of course we realize all the check into our economy, and there are going to be ripple effects that go through the economy that are going to increase jobs and incomes in the future as time goes along. So we are talking about 70% that goes out of the city, out of the wealth that this firm created, if the person takes it out of the city, or takes it out of the county, or out of the state.
So
Now, the kicker here is that we also did a supplemental study with the help of Blake Benson of the Chamber. We found out that the higher the income, but this is census information, but we found out the higher the income, the more likely it is that people are going to commute to the job in Pittsburgh. And for people that have 100,000 or more, we did this study in, I believe, 2017, then only 25% of the people that worked in Pittsburgh and were having incomes of 100,000 or more lived in Pittsburgh. So what does that mean? That means basically the poor tend to live in Pittsburgh. So it has to go to housing and now, Pittsburgh is the economic anchor in the region. So it's not surprising that people are driving to Pittsburgh for a job. But this high level, and we found out in our survey that it was 70.9% for the major employers. That is just a great, great concern because there is so much wealth that is leaking out of the city. Now, let's look at taxable sales. Now, we don't have much information on taxable sales for 22, but we have tax collections. That's a good indicator. They went up 30.8%. Of course, that is way above inflation. So this is a real increase. Now, if you look at historical data, then you can see that we really started to grow in 2017. Now, the Kansas Department of Revenue has come out and said that Pittsburgh truly is the regional center for consumer services and retail sales in the greater region, with a retail pull factor of 1.9. Now that means that if all retail sales in Pittsburgh were sold to people that live in Pittsburgh, then the population of Pittsburgh would have to be 90% bigger. As it translates to 21 sales, that means that 47.4% of retail sales in Pittsburgh went to visitors. Now let's look a little bit at local financial resources, economic development, and construction. Now, if you look at deposits, you can see that we need financial resources in order to support private economic development and construction, and they've been increasing at an extremely healthy rate. They've gone up 31% during this period. So we seem to have the resources. If you look at the real estate markets, you can see that the commercial market and permits have gone up through the roofs, 530% for the first 7 months of this year. If you look at the average, or the value of the average contract in commercial sales, it's gone up 80%. So the commercial market is doing really well locally. Now if you look at residential permits and the residential market, you can see that the residential market the value of new permits have gone up over 74%. So the residential real estate market is doing really well. But if you look at housing sales, they declined for the first 8 months of 22. Now, the most plausible reason for that is few listings. If you look at the time it took to sell the homes, then for the first 8 months, half of the homes were sold in 15 days or less. So they were just basically gobbled up. So there's a lot of housing demand, and that kind of supports the notion that we are having all this population growth. Now, so what have we accomplished? Now, we know that there is a lot of economic development in the background by city leaders and by the Chamber of Commerce, economic developers, and it's not on the news all the time. But it seems that the benefits are now showing up. It's showing up in the national data, and we are getting a lot of, I would say, positive exposure nationwide. In 2019, U.S. News and World Report ranked the Pittsburgh area significantly higher than 813 other similar communities nationwide, classified as urban up and coming. And we ranked better for many of the major or important per capita economic indicators. In 2020, PC Magazine, which is of course a nationwide authority on this, ranked Pittsburgh as the 31st best city nationwide in which to work from home. In 2020, the Wichita Business Journal ranked the MBA at Pittsburgh State University as the best statewide. That's good exposure. The same year, Smart Asset ranked Pittsburgh 9th best to live nationwide for seniors who have over 1 million. In 21, Business View magazine, which of course is very reputable nationwide business magazine, called Pittsburgh Diamond in the Rough. So you can see, I'm sure that they wouldn't have said that 10 or 15 years ago, but now all this economic development in the background is showing up in the data nationwide. And in 21, Unicast reported that Pittsburgh was the 4th fastest growing small city nationwide. So I would say that the city is on a good economic foundation. Of course, we have our challenges, and I was only given like 15, 16 minutes to speak, so I'm going to stop now. But if you have any questions, then this.
So some of the data, like on jobs, are like from 2019. What's the process to get?
Say it again?
Some of the data that you showed was from 2019.
Yes.
What's the time frame before more current data would be available?
Well, here's the thing. Of course, 2020 doesn't represent anything, right? I mean, the government just closed everything down. I mean, it doesn't represent the state of the economy.
Right.
And 21 really neither, you know. But we don't have 21, but we have 2020. But I mean, it's not representative.
So really, we need to look from 2019 to current. I mean, 'cause
We need, 2015 to 2019. In 22, when we get that data, we're going to get that in 23. That is kind of the first year that we can start to look at in terms of the structure of the economy. When we are talking about the gross domestic product by industry and all that stuff, you know. Of course, closing the economy, we had all these supply bottlenecks. And we are working ourselves through that. Another thing, since you're talking about that, that's amazing. I mean, we don't know exactly what's happening with all these indicators that we have because they are not really, think about this, they are not real. The amount of stimulus that we had, this is the money supply. I mean, this money supply and this energy is still burning itself through the economy. And of course, most of the major employers in in Pittsburgh, derive their income by selling nationwide. So they depend on the nationwide economy. And what's going to happen to the nationwide economy, of course, is going to also determine what happens to us here. But look at this. I mean, this is just like out of an adventure, this money supply increase. You can see it just went thousands of thousands % in 2020.
So, getting kind of on Don's question, on the job growth, you just have data from 2019, right?
The number of jobs?
Yeah.
Oh, we have the first quarter 2022.
So, how can you explain that probably every business that we have in the city of Pittsburgh is hiring? So is job growth up?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
down? You're talking about job growth. And all of our businesses are needing people to work. So what does that relate to your figures, facts? Are job growth going up, job growth going down?
It's definitely
You
going
know,
up
Going up?
tremendously.
So everyone's still needing to hire people, but they can't get people to work.
Yeah, and there's a lot of jobs that are open.
So
the slide that I showed, there were
The two holes I see here, one is people, we don't have enough people. And number two is we don't have enough housing. Is that correct?
Sorry.
I'm sorry, would you tell me what you asked?
Oh, it's just, it was a question of what, he's looking at the two major problems we're facing in the economy. He's saying it's the workforce and housing for that workforce.
That is absolutely correct, yeah. The labor force is a major obstacle for growth. Because you have all these jobs that are open, and according to the Kansas Labor Market Information Center, and they mostly track major employers, they had 526 jobs open. And then you have all these small businesses that are looking for jobs. So yeah, the economy is really primed for growth.
But it's not happening right now because we can't fill the jobs, right?
Yeah.
And housing. You're saying if we had more housing, then jobs would be filled?
Absolutely. We would have more people moving to Pittsburgh. Remember, 70% of the value added that's created at the firm in Pittsburgh is paid out either wages or private income. Now, if it goes out of the city, we are not going to realize any benefits.
Right, I
Out of
understand
wealth that was created, this wealth, 70% of the wealth. Now, in the study that we did earlier that the chamber helped us with, we found out, we had one question we said, and by the way, it was, Blake sent it out to the Human Resources Department of all the major employers. And they sent it out to employees, and we got like 530 responses. It's based on that. About 530 or 40 responses. And one of the questions we had was, if you commute to your job in Pittsburgh, why did you not buy a home when you got the job in Pittsburgh? 55% said because of housing issues. Either they didn't find a house that was affordable, or they didn't like the neighborhood, and so forth. Now, some people, I don't remember the portion now, but some people wanted to live in rural setting and where they grew up, so they wouldn't move to Pittsburgh.
Well, that's what my point is. I think if they are not living in Pittsburgh, but working in Pittsburgh, whether you have houses or not, I don't think a lot of those people will want to move to Pittsburgh. I think they're happy where they live, they commute, and they work in Pittsburgh. You know, a lot of cities are like that. Your major cities, a lot of people don't live in the city they work in. They commute. So I think it's not a unique situation to Pittsburgh. I think people don't mind commuting and working in Pittsburgh. Another thing, you said something about poverty was up or going down, but it's still not, you know, I don't understand that either. I know what poverty is, but I know we have several companies hiring, so if these people go to work, it might get them out of their poverty situation. Now, I don't know what help they might need to understand, you know, working will get them out of that poverty situation, but I think that would help if we get some kind of counseling or something for them. Say, hey, you know, if you work, you value what you earn, and it gets you out of the poverty. So, you know, there's some things that you mentioned that I just don't agree with, but that's your opinions. But so
Actually, it's data, but.
Now, to your first question, 63% or 70.9% of jobs being filled by commuters, that is just way, way too high.
that's what people want to do.
And, okay.
That's not necessarily,
That's
some,
not
but some, when you hire and they can't find a house, they have to go out, so it's not.
Affordable housing.
But being a
Yeah.
border town too, the taxes are cheaper across in Missouri than they are here.
I don't think it has to do much with taxes, because that, like I said, 55% of the people wanted to buy a home here, of the people that commuted. Few mentioned taxes, but everyone mentioned housing. And I wish I had the slide with me, but I don't. But I looked at the housing situation in 2017, and if you wanted to buy a house, a middle-income house, 2,400 square feet, then it looked like a dump in Pittsburgh. I went on Realtor.com, but you got a brand-new house for the same price in Joplin. So that's what we were facing at the time. And the realtors, for some reason, really didn't even care about having this looks nice. I mean, selling their homes on Realtor.com or Zillow. Probably because that at the time, there wasn't any alternative. And now we have all this new housing. That is an alternative. And, you know.
Well, most of that, a good portion of this housing hasn't really come online yet. Some has, but a good portion of it has not come online. and we're still building, 142, there's only 12 houses out there. And I think in time, yes, that we'll see it. As we get an increase in housing, we'll see more people come on board. But I also think that people who hire these folks should encourage them to live in Pittsburgh. I know you can't make them, but, encourage them to live in Pittsburgh. It is a pretty decent community. I know a lot of people who drive in from Carl Junction every day to work, and a lot of them from Joplin and the outlying areas, but because I live on Quincy and I see the Missouri tags coming into town constantly about 7:45 every morning. But maybe we should encourage people to do that. One of the ways is having more affordable housing.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning before, great presentation, but I don't want, if somebody caught it in the middle, I don't want them to hear that we don't have any houses and poverty's up and we're all poor. Poverty is high for the area, but it's coming down.
Yeah.
We've moved over 15% of people in the last 4 or 5 years from lower class to middle class. And that's reflected in the wage studies that we've seen also with wages going up. And while there aren't a lot of houses for whatever reason, I mean, we obviously, to Chuck's point, everybody that isn't living here isn't saying, well, I'm just living there because there's not a house, but there's got to be a huge percentage of them that anybody that's relocated here in the last 10 years, and I'm one of them, it was very hard to find a house. And we've gone a lot, the commission's done a good job of incentivizing developments, but with the supply and the labor issues right now, getting production builders to build out the other 120 lots that are in the one that Dr. Sigley was talking about, and the others are coming. So don't give up on Pittsburgh. Things are looking good. Dr. Davidson went over his 18 minutes, but I think he painted a good picture. But I wanted to end on a very positive note that there's a lot of markers and a lot of data in there. And I think they say that it's a good place, we're in a good place, and it looks like we're going to be in a good place for a while. We just need to focus on workforce and housing, which everybody in the state, as far as I know, is working on the same thing, with a few exceptions. Thanks for knocking it out of the park, buddy.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to consider the following. 919 JDJME LLC project. Consider the recommendation of the Economic Development Advisory Committee to support 919 JDJME LLC project by allocating an amount equal to 10% of the total project value to renovate the dilapidated property located at 919 North Broadway, with the city's portion not to exceed $35,000 in non-repayable funds to be used specifically for infrastructure improvements. Good evening, Blake.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Commissioners. This is a project that was considered by the Economic Development Advisory Committee related to redevelopment project downtown. It's located, as you mentioned, at 919 North Broadway, which is especially significant because it really serves as kind of the gateway for the northern part of the downtown area. Obviously, we've seen a lot of redevelopment closer to 4th and Broadway. This is encouraging because it's a little further north. So 919 North Broadway, it's a $350,000 investment by the company that you mentioned. We have, I'll talk a little bit about the recommendation from the EDAC, but we have Michael and Ellie Wilbur who are here, and I've got some pictures that they provided of what the building looked like before they began working on it. I'll ask Michael to go ahead and come up, and he's going to tell you a little bit about what they've done to the property and what the future plans are, and then I'll talk about the recommendation from the EDAC. So, Michael, if you just want to hit that arrow to advance the pictures.
Well, I'm going to bring my wife up to advance the pictures because she got out easy. So I'm Michael Wilbur. Thank you, Commissioners. This is my wife, Ellie. We've lived here in Pittsburgh since 1987. We purchased this 919 North Broadway location back in November of 2021. And the reason why, which has already been stated, is it's dilapidated. I think the last place that the commercial space was used for was a smoke shop, or I think it might have been a liquor store. I'm not sure. It's been so long. But what we did is it was just an eyesore, so we decided to purchase this property. I knew Chuck Hossman, and really nothing was done with this property. So what we decided to do was purchase it. We're gonna start the renovation. We've already started the renovation on phase 1, which is almost complete. Phase 2 will be residential. What we would like to do as far as the property is to turn that into a commercial space. We've already been hit up by 2 different people who have looked at renting that location. And then the back, phase 2 is the residential part. Before it was kind of some rundown apartments. We are going to do a complete facelift on that. The roof has to be completely redone, which is very expensive for those flat roofs. I think some of you probably already know that. When we were doing this and looking at the total renovations, you know, we purchased the property for around 55, and then we're going to be putting in about $285,000 into it. The breakdown with that, which I don't know if you have those figures or not, but phase 1 has already been done on the roof. That was $26,000. Phase 2, which is the residential part, is going to be $36,000. We've got concrete, which is a total of $57,000. Phase 1 is already done. I don't know if have you guys seen the property? It looks so much better with that concrete and the roof done. We have electrical, plumbing, and windows, along with the HVAC that all needs to be replaced. So we're not including in these figures any replacing of the walls, floors, fixtures, appliances, anything inside. This is just basically to get the outside, the inside ready to go. The rest of it we will fund ourselves. So, any questions on that?
Yeah, phase 1, what are you talking about? The corner that you have?
Yeah, the angled part.
But you've said you've had a couple inquiries into that already.
Correct.
And then the
On leasing it.
next phase is gonna be residential?
Correct.
How many units are you looking at?
We're gonna be looking at 5 units.
5 units?
Uh-huh.
I bet with the work you've done on the commercial side, if it looks anything residential like the commercial, you're gonna have more than 5 people inquiring about those 5 units.
We've
Looks
already had
great.
people asking us about that
Yeah.
already.
Looks really good.
Yeah.
I'll move to approve.
Second?
Very good job. Thank you. Moved by Stu, seconded by Don. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations. We want to see pictures later, too. All right. Consider the following item B, release of mortgage and waiver of right of repurchase, P&L Development, Silverback Landing, Silverback Housing Development. Consider staff recommendation to approve a release of mortgage and waiver of right of repurchase for P&L Development in relation to lots number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 114, 115, 116, 117, and 118 in Silverback Landing, located in the Silverback Housing Development.
That's a mouthful. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the agenda addition request states, just a refresher, back in 2018, the City Commission approved providing a $450,000 repayable loan to P&L Development to support the Silverback Housing Development, consistent with how the city always does with any of their loan projects. We always include a second mortgage that gives the city some security. Typically, the bank or the lead financing agent will take the first position, so the city usually takes that second position. In addition, with this particular project, since the city owned this property that Silverback was going to be located on, we also included a right of repurchase that was just another layer of protection for the city, so that if for some reason the developer started doing something completely different than what the city commission envisioned, that the city would at least have that tool to repurchase the property. So as is typically the case, when that loan is then paid off to the city removes its second mortgage. We have been coming to you as lots have been sold, asking you to release that second mortgage lot by lot. But now that the loan has been repaid in its entirety from P&L Development, we're now bringing you these documents that would remove the city's second position and also that right of repurchase. Henry obviously is the one that crafts all these for us, so if there's anything in there that's incorrect, Henry, please correct me.
You explained it very well.
I have just one question. You include, or it includes everything, even houses that have already been sold and recorded to the county. And the reason being is just because you don't want to miss anything?
That's a good question. I'm glad you asked that. We reached out to the P&L Security first, who did the title work for P&L Development, and they said, first of all, it's easier to include all of the lots, and it gets the document to us in a more timely fashion, but it also removes the element of human error. If they start pulling off individual lots that have been sold, if for some reason you pull a lot off of this document that had not been sold, then the city would have to go back later on and remove that, and it doesn't hurt anything to go ahead and list all of these lots on here, so that's the reason all of the lots are included.
So the city would not have a liability position or a financial position?
Correct.
So you said the reason why the city wanted to have a liability position in case the developer did something that was...
It's just a layer of protect, if a city commission approved, with any of the projects we bring, it's a little different with the Wilbur project because they don't get that money until the back end. But with any economic development project, if someone says, we're going to build this on it, you give them the money, especially since the city is the one that sold them the property, and they go off and start building a circus on it, and something that was completely different than what you envisioned, the city would then have the ability to repurchase that property from the developer.
But we don't have that now, if we approve this.
Correct.
Let me ask you something also. If the developer decides to, and this is off whatever this is, but if the developer decides to maybe sell this development, I was asked, does the RHID stay on that if he sells it to somebody else, or if somebody other developer buys it, would they have to start the RHID process again, or?
Is the RID transferred?
The documents that the city approved with any developer who has a RID has an assignment provision in it. City would have to give approval, obviously, in order for them to assign a RID to a new owner.
So you're saying if he sold it, then we'd have to approve the next developer, or?
No,
I don't have that development agreement in front of me, but typically, yes, if there's a RID out there, it's saying it's being paid to a certain developer, and if that developer would change, typically they'd have to come back, get your approval to sign off on it.
Anything else?
I move approval of the release.
Moved by Don, seconded by Ron. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Thank you.
Good job, Mike.
Okay. Item C, airport AV gas refueler purchase. Consider staff request to waive the formal bid process and award the contract for the purchase of 1,000-gallon AV gas refueler for the use at the municipal airport, Atkinson Municipal Airport, to Garside Aviation Refueling Equipment in the amount of $137,500.
Mayor and Commissioners, I appreciate this. This seems kind of really dull stuff after all the stuff we've been working on tonight, but this is just more basic business that the city is working on. We have a very old refueler for avgas that is currently being held together. And we tried to purchase one about a year ago. That deal fell through. Really, it was the fault of the supplier, all right? And we don't feel that it's prudent to go through the entire bid process again, so we're asking you to waive that bid process and purchase this particular refueler. I think I asked Bill to talk a little bit about the situation. Why don't you start by telling him how old the current one is?
The current truck that we're using today for our avgas for fuel for the piston airplanes is a 1981 Ford F-350. So it's about wore out.
41 years old.
So we're looking to upgrade, and Garside, with speaking with them, they have trucks available. They're telling me that first quarter of 2023, we could take delivery maybe as early as February.
And based on the current situation and current conditions for supplies, particularly of specialty equipment of this nature, and as essential as it is for the operations at the airport, we just felt it was appropriate.
And Jay, we'd previously heard the request and approved that one, but this one is different because it's, I think Larissa mentioned, it's 20,000 more because of supplies.
It's a 2023 truck too. It's a year newer truck.
Have you gone out and looked to see if anybody else can undercut that?
Yes, we went out and got some quotes from suppliers, and others can, but we're looking for the right kind of truck. Again, it's a specialty piece of equipment. Bill has some specific things he's looking for.
And we also own the city owns a Jet A refueler truck that was built by Garside that we purchased in 2008.
So what do you say, Jay, that the original bid, whoever got the low bid wasn't able to supply it, or what was that?
There was I'll just say yes, he wasn't able to supply it, right.
I kind of see some more stuff in what you're saying there wasn't able to supply. My question is, I see this new one's 1,000 gallons.
Correct, and that's the standard minimum size tank now. We originally had looked at a 750-gallon tank, but in today's world, 1,000 gallon is the minimum.
If we would have went to 1,000 gallons back then, Billy, would it have been cheaper than it is now because of inflation, or?
Well, the truck that fell through was 1,000 gallons.
Oh, it was?
Yes.
Oh, but you just bid a
We changed
7.
that to 1,000. We originally had bid a 750,
but
they came back and said they could deliver 1,000 gallon. 750 wasn't going to be available.
So I take it that if we ever have to bid with that guy or whoever company again, we might.
Global Aviation Services?
Yeah, we might have second thoughts if
Right.
they are the low bid.
You are correct.
Have is there an application that could be sent to the FAA to help us pay for this truck?
That isn't one of the things the FAA pays for.
Okay.
They pay for infrastructure that planes ride on. Right.
And how old is the truck replacement?
41 years.
41 years
Yeah,
old, so none of
1981.
us have to worry about this process again.
Right, correct.
So, yeah. Well, I'll move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Chuck, seconded by Stu. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Passes. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Okay, item D. Alltel Corporation doing business as Verizon Wireless, memorandum of third amendment to tower lease agreement and third amendment to tower lease agreement. Consider staff recommendation to approve a memorandum of third amendment to tower lease agreement and a third amendment to tower lease agreement between the City of Pittsburgh and Alltel Corporation doing business as Verizon Wireless to extend the lease agreement for the tower located at 101 North Locust for 6 years, with one additional extension term of 4 years commencing on October 1st, 2022, with an annual rental amount of $40,829.
Explain that.
Verizon has been on that tower. It's our downtown tower, the Locust. They've been on there for a number of years, obviously. And their renewal period is ending this month, and they want to renew for another 6-year period with additional 4-year extension possible as well. So this is an extension of an agreement that we've had with Verizon for a long time.
And they've been a good partner, or
Been a good partner. They're very respectful. When they need to have work, they coordinate it with us. They pay their rents. This is a pretty significant increase in the rent from the previous agreement. It's basically a continuation of business as usual with one of our biggest tenants on one of our towers.
All right, any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
so moved.
Doubled by Don and Ron. Second? Stu and Chuck? Okay, second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Thanks, Jay.
Thanks.
All right, item E, Land Water Conservation Fund Grant Application. Parks and Recreation. Consider staff request to apply for a Land Water Conservation Fund grant to support the construction of a new miniature golf course, clubhouse and concession stand, and additional parking at Four Oaks Golf Course Complex.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Commissioners.
Good evening.
We're here to ask for permission to apply for the Land Water Conservation Grant Fund to construct a new miniature golf course to replace the old one. It's been brought to our attention for several years by multiple entities that the mini course has run its course, and we are ready for a newer one, updated one. So I've been in talks with designers, got some basic pricing, and then our first step tonight is to get approval, to get your signatures to apply for the Land Water Conservation Grant Fund.
How much is that grant? Do you have any idea?
Right now, Chuck, we're gonna look at trying to do a 50-50 split with grant money and private donorship money. And just based off the numbers I've seen, we're probably looking at $175 per side. Trying to get it in is a good price. And that's a new mini course, fence and lights. That's nothing else right now. The city will have a minimal amount of in-kind labor taking out the old one. That's the kind of stuff we can do, but we feel that we need to bring the professionals in to build the mini course.
Why under the Land Water Conservation?
It's an available fund right now. It's federally funded. It renews every year. This is a project that is in line with the Imagine Pittsburgh 2030 of mind, body, and soul, and providing activities. It's in line with the Kansas Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Program goals, and we feel that we have a fair shot at it. No grants are guaranteed. You win some, you lose some, but this is the first step of trying to get that grant, is getting the application filled.
So if you apply for the grant, Toby, how long will it be before you know if you?
Usually they let you know they're going to come down and do an inspection probably mid to late October, early November. And then obviously we'll have a better feel for that after that. And if it's not a good thing, then we go back to the drawing board, and then we have to raise more money on the private side. And I've got Dr. Scott and Gordon Elliott here from IP 2030 to lend their support to the project. And we have been, Darren and I met with IP 2030 members, and they expressed a desire that this would be a good project to be in favor of.
Move to approve.
I second it.
Moved by Stu, seconded by Chuck. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Toby.
Thanks, Toby.
Good luck. Let us know. All right. Okay, non-agenda reports and requests. Darren, do you have anything?
I only have one that I know of. Blake, can you come up to the mic? Mr. Benson has been finally confirmed by the state legislature as our most recent Board of Regent. And I think, from my understanding, it's been a while since we've had one from Pittsburgh. So just want to recognize he does a lot for the city. He's at the mic a lot, but he's going to be on the road a little bit too, representing us across the state. So I wanted to just acknowledge that and tell him thanks for all he does for us, and congratulations. For all he does.
All right, does anyone have anything else? Nope. Okay, I would like to say something. I'd like to make a motion being mindful of people's time here, doing it at the end, I'd like to make a motion for the governing body, Darren Hall and Henry McGinney, to go into executive session for a period of 45 minutes for the purpose to discuss public safety pursuant to personnel matters of non-elected personnel according to KSA 75-4319B1, and then the open meeting would resume in the commission meeting room in 45 minutes. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second.
Do you know what this is about? Have you been told what this is about?
No.
I'm not sure. I guess I would ask why you haven't informed.
I made the motion. It's a proper motion.
I'm not questioning the motion. I'm questioning informing leadership as to why we're doing this.
Okay, every single executive session that's came through, has leadership been informed?
Pretty much, yeah, because.
The January 25th executive session, was leadership informed of
What was
that?
that? That's so many.
Stu?
Yes.
Okay.
I was told else. Something else?
So I just thought it needed to be discussed
What?
in
Yeah.
a or in a executive.
Well, like I said, the information I got about being informed, I was told they weren't, so, you know.
I think
So-
you probably talked to them.
I did.
All right, I'm not saying you didn't.
So
I
do
thought
we
it
have,
was.
do we have a problem going into executive session? Or there's a motion and a second. So all those in favor? Aye. All those
Aye.
opposed? Okay. 3-2. Okay, we're gonna go into executive session.
45.
Okay. We are back. No votes were cast, no decisions were made. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Stu,
Second?
second by Ron. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Go.
We are adjourned. Thank you for a great night.